You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.
I'm actually pretty ecstatic to speak to these two first gentlemen. They are, and I'll let them introduce themselves, but the locals in Charlottesville, many of them are aware of the, the police history in the city. And we certainly know all of the reverberations that August 12th caused, and just the whole dynamic between the Charlottesville Police Department and its relationship with the community, right? And so ultimately, they came to the conclusion that we needed to do something to help build a relationship, to build transparency between the police department and the community, and to just help to make sure that there was fair and equitable, that's right word to use here, policing in the city of Charlottesville, right? And so the Police Civilian Review Board was born out of that in the city, and they exist around the country, but Charlottesville has its very own. And this current board is kind of just getting started here and trying to lay some track and get things, up and running, essentially. And so we've asked two of its members to join us, one being the chair of the board, Mr. Bellamy Brown, and the other one being a member, Mr. James Watson. So we certainly want to welcome them.
Yeah, welcome.
In my humble opinion. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And just to point out, Mr. Watson was the inaugural chair, so I want to show him some love there. And I just came in behind his footsteps. So
nice.
Correct. Yep.
Hey, I think that may be a good spot to start. Max, what do you think? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was gonna ask about, it was kind of public, in regards to some of the movement. Within the board, as far as chairs changing, your current membership, and I believe there was talk as well about hiring an executive director. So, how about you guys bring us up to speed first on that? Current membership and like where we fall, now with the movement.
Before we jump into that, let's just lay a little foundation. So I want to give both of these gentlemen just an opportunity to explain what the Police Civilian Review Board is and what its objectives are.
What, James, you want to? Sure. So
I think he's pointing at you. It's on you.
Sure. So, as Max has stated, the police was the PCRB was born out of some of the historical record of policing in Charlottesville, and more pronounced after August 12th. I guess some of the goal behind it was to there was several functions to ensure that police officers act with integrity, treat everybody with equal dignity, to empower and inspire self-governance and a culture of mutual respect, to seek social and racial justice, engage the community in outreach, listen to and build cooperation between all the stakeholders. That includes City Council, Charlottesville Police Department, the community itself, some of the larger community groups like the People's Coalition, and process complaints and review police practices. And I mean, overall, that's what we've been working on. The initial ordinance has been a little bit light in helping us do that, given that we really essentially at this point can just review internal affairs investigations, and really not do much beyond that. And I'll let James add in anything that he is may feel that I left out or what have you.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think Bellamy pretty much summed it up. I had heard about two and a half years ago that this was forming, and it struck my interest because I wanted to do something right to help. Just like all of you, I feel like my whole life I've been seeing stories of unarmed African Americans, teenagers included, even sometimes little kids, being victims of police misconduct. And I didn't really know how to help because, like a lot of folks, I'm busy. I'm working, I have children. Mm-hmm. And when this came up, I said, "Oh, this is great, because here's something I can be a part of that will hopefully improve, the relationship between the community and the police, and enhance public safety, and help sort of turn the tide of what we've seen for centuries at this point."
Got you. Yep. Thank y'all for the description. Now, with that being said, sort of back to that question that I posed, this is something where you got to have, pretty thick skin to do. Like I see too many times in organizations where it's structural, right? It's sort of, like sometimes it's even to save face. So, even being so I asked a question about membership, changes and whatnot. So if you could touch on that, but being appointed by the city, like what's the stress like to be able to do checks and balances on sort of your, employer, so to speak?
So for me, I don't really, and this may be a question you ask later, but, my experience I've had my own experience with police profiling, and, fought through that, successfully. So for me, that drives a lot of, what I do here. So I don't look at, what the city is doing or what anybody else is doing. I look at it from the standpoint of, we have a mission here for, people in the community who look like us, Black and brown folk, that need a mechanism, need some type of avenue to say, raise the BS flag, say the police did XYZ. Now we need to have some type of recourse to be able to change some of those actions. So I, again, based on my personal experience, I know that needs to be done. And so I look at, through all the ups and downs of board members coming on, board members, going off. At the end of the day, we have a mission to create this mechanism and get it across the goal line for others that are out there, behind us that may have some negative interaction with the police. So I think, again, our power right now is pretty weak. We're working on trying to, build that power up to get more, for the community itself. At the end of the day, given that it's appointed by the city council, it's always going to be a part of the local government. It's just how much as part of the local government can we provide that independence and that mechanism for people to be able to have that avenue to call BS when necessary.
Got you. Hey, Elliot, I was going to kick it over to Giles and Elliot from CT. I know y'all had a couple of specific questions as well.
Yeah, I was just curious. You mentioned that the CRB doesn't have a lot of power at this moment, but starting July 1 with the General Assembly's decision to give the civilian review boards across the state more power, are there any plans to revisit some of the older cases in the past year, like the Quinn Gilmore case, for example?
So the LaQuinn Gilmore case, that's sure, he has the avenue of coming to us now and, having his, case reviewed. But obviously, given the outcome of the internal affairs investigation, he has a stronger opportunity at the court level. So I believe it's been reported in the news that that's what he's going to pursue. The most cases, you have about a year from the date of the incident to file, the complaint. The complaint goes through roughly a 75-day process, and after the outcome of that, the complainant or the individual can request that we review it at that point in time. So it is time barred from the date of the incident by a year, and then also you have that, and James can chime in if I'm incorrect. You have that 75 day period for the actual review, and then you're able to request. So anything beyond that 1 year, we wouldn't be able to touch at this point.
Yeah, that's correct.
I guess I have a more big picture question. Just, I think it was pretty clear early on in the first board that the relationship between Chief Brackney and at least some members of the board made the conversations, almost turn personal in a way. And it seemed like that it kind of gridlocked some of the larger community conversations about transparency, about accountability, about intent, about the general relationship of CPD to the body. Do you feel like those things have shaken out? And where do you think those sort of, particularly just, is this a cooperative relationship with CPD from the top down, or is it an antagonistic relationship with CPD?
So for me personally, I always operate through relationships, and I have stakeholders in different aspects of the community that I'll work with based off of those relationships. So my relationships with a lot of the stakeholders, be City Council, CPD, the community, the People's Coalition itself, are all positive, and I work typically through that. So we've been able to, there are some aspects like when the complaints come over to us, that we work well with the CPD. That's a part that I navigate. For me personally, Chief Brackney and I have a good working relationship. I know that there have been some other members in the past or on the current board where that hasn't been the case. So, for me, I have a positive working relationship with a lot of the stakeholders across the board, to include CPD and Chief Brackney. I think that that's important for our work to be able to get what we need done, at the end of the day. Because like I said earlier, the ordinance itself is a weak ordinance, and based on that weakness, we've had to rely on a lot of the CPD's generosity to get some of the things done that we need done at this point. So that's speaking, just strictly for me. And, again, James can chime in with this.
Yeah, I would say what's maybe unique about this opportunity is it is probably one of the few groups you can be a part of where you have to hold somebody accountable, yet have a good working relationship with them. Right. If we have an unhealthy relationship with the chief and the entire police force, then I think the whole thing is going to fall apart. All at the same time, we have to hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. And then there's the reality that, if you are a chief or you're a supervisor, you have 100 officers out there, you really can't control exactly how anybody is going to respond in every single situation. You try to hire the best people, right? You try to train them. You try to weed out on the way in, people that may have a history of misconduct. But then there's a certain element where, they're adults and they're out there. And so I think both Bellamy and I have really each tried to have a positive relationship with as many different stakeholders across the board. Charlottesville is a really unique town. We have, one extreme of folks that just want all police to go away. Right. You have people that want more policing. You have people that don't trust anybody that's, in policing that's not from here. And so I think we're constantly, listening to people, right? And respecting everybody's thoughts, but trying to have the healthiest relationship we can possibly have while trying to move this forward.
Yeah. So what's been some of the reason for some of the membership turnover though? Because I don't want to lose that point. And do you feel that you have the support needed, from the city entities?
So, all right. So in our last meeting, there were a couple people who called in and they kept saying that we lost 3 members. Mm-hmm. And that's not really true. We had somebody who left before we even got started. So that was one of the 3. And I think we started about June of last year. So at that point, we're about 90 days into the coronavirus. And I think the whole world was stressed at that point. not to mention the election and all the news that we were getting. I think that impacts everybody. And so our second person left the board after like 60 days. And as I said in the meeting, you know, some of this we've been trying to figure out for 400 years. So if you don't last 60 days, did you really want to be part of it? And I can't speak on behalf of everybody, right? Why they quit. I mean, it's been stressful for me, you know, I mean, just getting through the school year right now with my kids and my job and my wife's job, and then also taking this on. So, you know, there's just a lot going on in people's lives. And so there's reasons. I don't think it's because of us. I also believe that we've had the challenge of trying to connect with each other via Zoom the entire time, right? Early on, I had folks try to meet at Washington Park, but if there's more than two of us, then it's a public meeting. So then you got to have you know, set up something with the city where it's publicly broadcasted, and we haven't even just sat down and talked about, hey, how many kids do you have, or you know, made those human connections. So
the wellness checks,
yeah. So it's like, you know, there's been those obstacles, but I think if it's something that's important to you, you know, and you know, you can work your way through these things. And I like Bellamy's mindset, by the way. I was really glad when he joined the board. Like he said, he doesn't worry about what the city council's thinking about or why somebody's, you know, got an issue. I mean, he you know, he's like, hey, we got a mission. And so that's the mindset that I try to uphold.
IMHO Talk Show, Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor, A.A. Ronald. We are joined by Bellamy and James of the Police Civilian Review Board. Hey, so before we move on to the next question, I want to make sure that we are clear, you know, and we answered a couple of things that were already said. So Bellamy, so you mentioned a statute of limitation, I believe you said, of a year. So I'm curious, you know, because there's been some complaints about, you know, the local police. There was even an instance where it was a state trooper that happened within this area. What complaints, issues right now that are on the table before, you know, before they expire and we can no longer review them?
Well, I mean, at this point, we have 13 that have been brought to the board itself. Now, to trigger I guess, a review of those complaints, of the work that Internal Affairs has done, those individuals would have to request a review with us. Now, there's only been one that's been requested to date, and we're in the process of setting up our hearing structure to be able to conduct that. But anything outside of that, you know, 1 year time frame, if you haven't you know, anything outside that 1 year time frame, the ordinance just doesn't allow. So the city council has cut off the power at that point in time. So if those 13 individuals decide, or 12 at this point, if those 12 other individuals decide not to exercise that review request, then there's really nothing unless the board, you know, takes a look at, you know, everything and votes. But we would still have to have the permission of the complainant or that individual to be able to move forward. But that 1 year statute of limitations is hard and fast. You can't change that.
Gotcha. Now we realize that, you know, that there's public opinion that, you know, that can create narratives that you know, that may be unfair or untrue. And Aaron had a good question for you guys. Aaron?
Hey fellas, appreciate the content. Obviously, this isn't for just you guys, but this is all across the country. You know, these police civilian review boards are becoming, I don't want to say more popular. I don't think that's the right term to use, but a lot of cities, counties are recommending them. And a lot of the pushback that people are getting is that what qualifies a review board to have the authority to even discipline an officer in any capacity, or even make a recommendation to have authority. So that's one basic question that I want you guys, and you probably already answered it, but what gives you guys the authority, or what authority are you really, really looking for? Because you've mentioned a couple times that you were powerless, but what exactly, how much power are you guys looking for? And then the second question is, I'm not sure exactly how the board is constructed, so I'm gonna actually bring it real low. So elementary level, are there officers or do you guys allow law enforcement to be on the board? Because I was reading another article that says, well, we'll allow, this is maybe in Minnesota, we'll allow this if you allow a certain amount of law enforcement to possibly be on the board. And then are you guys for that? Are you against that? Is that something that's on the table? So I hope I didn't overwhelm you guys. So let's try to get back to the first one.
Trojan horse.
Did you take note, Bellamy?
Trojan
horse. So going to the authority part. So the authority here under this current ordinance is extended by the city council in enacting that ordinance. That's where we get the current authority. If we're looking at, and that's just review authority. If we're looking at the investigations, subpoena power, disciplinary authority, that authority comes out of the General Assembly, which the governor most recently signed. So that's the authority. If you're talking about, what qualifications do you have? There's the National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement, NACOL, that provides training to civilian review boards across the country. And, as members take that training, we get a better understanding of how to effectively engage in this process. And so that kind of, limits or answers that question. Now, I know you had mentioned that, some of the pushback is that police officers would say, well, what makes you
they are saying it, because I even read in that article about that you guys just had that training, I think, with that particular with that institution, and they're saying, well, that's one training. I've been a law enforcement official for 10 or 15 years,
Yeah. And the other part about it is that, that's one training, but there are more that we've taken.
Right.
So the reason why we have these boards is because law enforcement hasn't done a good job of policing itself. So
there we go.
Someone may have been in law enforcement for 15 years, but obviously the job is not getting done in terms of protecting the public from these instances like George Floyd or Breonna Taylor, and grateful that we haven't had something to the extent here in Charlottesville. But the Constitution itself, the police are a government function. The Constitution itself says that the government is there to serve the people. That's, for lack of a better word. The people can come and get a redress of their grievances, meaning if the police come and hit me upside my head, who's going to be there to change that? The Constitution provides that authority. So, and when you look at the structure of our current city government, so you got the city council who sets the policy, but you got the city manager who does the execution, and under the city manager is the police department. So that's where some of that comes into play. So we are an extension on the policy side of city council. Once the executive director comes in, he or she will be that executive part within City Hall itself. So that's kind of the general structure. And as far as, can officers be on the board, the General Assembly made clear that a former law enforcement could be on the board as a non-voting member, which we do have. So you're not allowed to be a voting member as a police officer or law enforcement in that capacity. And James can, add anything that he has as well.
No, I appreciate that, Bellamy.
Yeah, and another way you can also look at the idea of police saying, well, how can everyday citizens, civilians, try to lay down discipline on police officers? Well, if I was to go to court, there would be a jury of my peers, right? So it's really no different than our court system. I look at us, the 8 members on the board, as local Charlottesville residents, and ideally you have a diverse board. And so, we're in the community, and just like any other jury selection, as Bellamy said, we've had training, and I think we could establish a matrix of discipline for different types of offenses, right? That probably could be agreed upon within the community, maybe city council. We haven't done this yet. Maybe city council and or the chief. So if you commit a misuse of force, type violation, we can come up with something. And again, we're a a board in its elementary phases. We're really just getting started. Even though there was a board before us, there was like a 15-month hiatus between us and the original board. But again, we're a jury of your peers. That's it.
Hey, Razor, what makes you more qualified than being a black man in America?
You want me on this microphone?
Hey, that's why I posed the question to you. What makes you more qualified to review the police than being a black man in America?
All right. Jesus. James, you're my boy, right? I love you.
That's a setup, right. James. Don't fall for the banana tailpipe. I just gotta say it like this, Charles. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the Civilian Review Board is some BS. I believe in Bellamy. I believe in James. I believe in the chief. I believe in Mayor Nakai Walker, right? But James said it perfectly. It's based off of the legal system, which is flawed to its core. So now y'all have to wait to get the power from people who... It's like the prisoners telling the warden what to do. It's like the children telling the parent. Like, they're telling you what you're allowed to tell me I can do or what you can do. Like, so... It's like a citizen's arrest. You know what I'm saying? Like, how much power does it really have? Really? So you have people who have the greatest intentions of trying to do something based off of people, let's just say, and I know you're gonna get upset at me, but I don't really care. Let's say like we talking about the city council, right? How many of them do you really think have been in trouble? So you telling me what I can ask and do to the police on somebody that you never really had to deal with? Nah, miss me with that, right? So now you got good people trying to do what they can do, right? Like these two gentlemen right here. But then when they said, okay, you're allowed to have a police officer on there, but he can't vote. But if he's on there to where he can sway the people and give them misconfusion, that's just as well as a vote right there. I've done it. You know what I'm saying? So
you think it can work though? Like, do you think these brothers can make it work ideally, or are you saying because of the structure it can't?
Absolutely not. I don't think they got a chance in hell. You know what I'm saying? And that's just being honest. Not because their ability won't let them do. It's just because they're trying to stand firmly on a glass of ice with oil poured on it.
They're gonna raise it with those metaphors.
I know. I had to think about that.
No, they can. They have all the ability. They have their intelligence. I know both of them personally. But at the end of the day, it's like getting up in court and pleading your case, and you're right. But guess what? The judge is gonna side with the police the majority of the time. Why? Because that's who's on his team. So you want the police chief, regardless if it's Brackney or anybody else, to say yes. Chastise the people who I'm over because they do what's in their mind need to be done. And a lot of the police department was filled with racist people, even token black people.
True.
You know what I'm saying? Not everybody on there is a good person like what I feel like Tito is. You know what I'm saying? African American man who worked his way up through the ranks, or the chief worked their way up to the ranks to get where they are. When you still have this whole bucket of corruption. And that's just speaking from a black man who's been in trouble and had the system put against him.
So y'all got to respond to that.
Respond to that.
I got a question for Razor though.
Yes, sir.
So do you think we should just walk away and just
absolutely not? We have to fight. We have to fight. Like I told you the other night, we can't give up, because if not us, then who? Right? So, but do I think that, Charles asked me, do I think that the two of you can make the change? In y'all tenure, in our age group, I don't think so. Because just like the person that made that comment the other night, I think that it can't come from the new people. It has to come from people already established with the power. So until we can get them to make the mindset to change, the rest of us don't stand a chance. We just have to weather the storm.
So you're doubtful, but you'd be glad to see them make the change.
Oh, I'm gonna stand right with them every step of the way. Right. I'm not going nowhere. Whatever they need me to be, I'm gonna be there. Right. I just know there's some bull.
Well, I mean, I'll say, you talk about your experience as a black man with the police. I got my own. As I said earlier, and that drives me. And so part of it is not just pleading the case at a certain point in time. There has to be buy-in from these stakeholders. All we need is 3 votes to be able to get this through. the city council, and then there's only a part of it that really is on that disciplinary aspect. The General Assembly, the bill says that it's for serious cases, and that still has to be defined, and it's also in consultation with the chiefs. In consultation with the chief. Now, the discipline part is only one aspect. You're looking at the investigatory part, where you can go in and say, in some cases, do our own investigations, or dig deeper to find out where some of the greater challenges are. I think that's information that kind of heads us in that right direction to getting just and fair discipline. Again, I mean, you can already see. Out of some of the complaints that we've had, come through. Look, you guys mentioned LaQuinn Gilmore being one of them, where a lot of the charges themselves were sustained, meaning that they said, yeah, this officer did, rough him up, or XYZ, and then that obviously gives him greater power to go, challenge that in court. So I mean, that's movement, in and of itself. So towards the right direction.
Hey, Bellamy, yes, one quick thing.
Yes.
One. I hate to interrupt, but I have to ask you this. I have to say this. I don't think discipline on the police is what we need, because that just leads to them trying, or some of them, not all of them, some of them trying to wait till they can pay you back. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like, and I'm gonna be the one to say it, when somebody has done something, the misfortune of harming an officer, the likelihood that person is going to live past 2-3 years isn't that likely, right? So things just seem to happen. So I think, as opposed to discipline, we need to have in things where change comes in. This is one of those things where I think that black people need to understand. We need to take, unfortunately, we may need to take what has happened to us on the chin in order for a better day. Because other than that, we're just playing tennis back and forth.
So what that makes me think of is the defund, because when you talk about like those different initiatives and ways we can go about it, where does the board stand with defund and reallocating resources that otherwise would have went to the police's budget? What's the board stance on the defund movement?
So as the spokesman of the board, the stance is that we're focused on, fulfilling this narrow role that we have in terms of, again, creating that mechanism for, individuals to complain, against, what am I trying to say? To complain against the challenges that they've had with the police, and also to provide an opportunity to have that redress. We're not at this point to where we're getting into a lot of the outside factors of a defund or what have you. Yes, we'll be able to look at some of the data and everything with regard to what the police are doing with their budgets and XYZ. But quite frankly, that's something that is a city council role. So at this point, we don't want to get caught up into the politics. We want to, focus on the narrow aspect of what our role is. Now, James can elaborate on some other aspects, but as the board itself, I mean, our mandate is pretty strict on this. And I do know that there are some members that are fully defund, but that is not the position of the board. And James, you can add anything that you want.
Because I'm curious if defund would help you. If you feel like some of your initiatives, if that actually would help.
At this point, I looked at some of the funding for CPD. And if you look at it right now, 82% of their money goes to salaries, right? And a lot of it goes to vehicles. So, and people won't like this, but I mean, Charlottesville is an expensive place to live, right? And so a lot of the officers can barely afford can't really buy a home as a young career officer off of that salary. My concern is racist practices, more so than whether they have $1 million or $5. It's more, are you racially profiling people? Am I walking through my own neighborhood with my kids and somebody asking me, what am I doing here at night? Why am I here? Where am I going? That's more the thing. not that we're not focused on the funding aspect in time, because again, we're trying to get the ordinance in line so that we can address people's complaints and investigate when wrongdoing takes place. But I lost my train of thought. But for me, it's more about that institution. And a lot of what Razor said is true. I do this every day, but a lot of what he's saying, trust me, are thoughts that I have. But I feel like if I can save one person's child, if Breonna Taylor happened in Charlottesville, at least you'd have a parachute at the end of the day where we can come in. If the whole system says, nope, these guys aren't guilty. Nope, we're not even going to charge these guys. Nope, they shot into the other house. Well, guess what? At the end of the day, you'd have to deal with us. Right. At least we are here. And once we get that power that the governor has established, once we can get our city council to vote and give us that power, then if there is a George Floyd and a Breonna Taylor and the court system says not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, okay, now you got to deal with us.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
I can save one person is working.
And just to James had mentioned the budgets themselves, and I looked at some police budgets across the country, and that 83% number is fairly standard in terms of policing. Working in accounting and finance, I know in some other aspects you're not going to have that high of a number for employees and what have you. I think the policing in general is a different mechanism. Now, speaking personally, for myself on the defund space, you're not going to have defunding at all, ever, and that's with Republicans or Democrats. If you look at the Supreme Court itself, you got the few liberal justices that wouldn't even take up a qualified immunity or any of that stuff. You got the General Assemblies across the country that are going to provide cover for police departments, so to speak. The police are the client-facing part. The entire criminal justice system, as what I call a racket or as a whole, is where all these things fall apart. That's, you got the courts, you got the legislatures, and you have the police. So you have to look at it from that entire perspective. I do believe that Denver itself has done a recent practice over the past 6 months where they sent out mental health people to some of these lower calls, and they've been able to cut down on a lot of that. So where we can get proper treatment outside of everyday policing, then absolutely put those dollars there and utilize them in that space. But you're never going to have a complete defunding of police, and that's under Democrats and Republicans. So you got to find out where we can get the most mileage with what we have.
People don't want that, man. I don't know why they keep hollering defund the police. Like, if you look at how the city got locked up with the 4 murders that we had. Now imagine the whole city walking around with limited police and people doing what they want to do. People don't want that, man.
Think about that. Yeah. But gentlemen, we are up against the hour. But thank y'all. We're gonna have to have you back, follow up. But in the meantime, stay in touch. Let us know how we can share info. Speaking of which, please, real quick, let the folks know how to go about contacting you or even submitting a complaint.
Yeah, so you should be able to go onto the police civilian review board website, and there should be, I don't have the email in front of me, but there should be our email there. Right now we're getting complaints via those emails at the CRB itself. We're also, the CPD has a number of avenues that you can file a complaint there, and they'll get passed over to us. As we get this up moving more structurally, we'll have other options to be able to file complaints with the CRB itself, and that'll kind of tie in with the CPD. But yeah, that's how you can reach us.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. James, any last words, my brother?
Hey, I appreciate you guys. I listen to this show and I say I wish I could have these guys over at my house, sit around the fire pit and
send the address.
Look, as long as you got some chicken,
yeah, don't threaten me with a good time. I show up, put my shoes on.
You got some food. We do that. We good.
It's good. We'll sit around the fire pit and throw some meat on the grill.
That's right.
Yeah, it's all good, man.
Yeah, thank you for this time, and we're doing the best we can. Hopefully, we can make a difference. And you guys are making a difference. Congratulations on that. I think you got a grant from Google, if I'm not mistaken.
Thank you.
That's right.
a couple months ago. And I enjoy what you're doing and look forward to coming back.
Thank you.